John Shults. It's kind of a cool name.
That's me.
Welcome, everybody, to Word of Mouth.
Welcome.
We're here live. If you're a viewer, you're seeing where this is the prettiest space we've ever
recorded in ever.
And that's pretty high praise because your aunt's house in Chattanooga is pretty
It was
beautiful.
pretty sick. We had a view of the whole city.
But we are here. Honestly, feel pretty dialed in on the podcasting right now because we recorded 2 days ago with Dr. Jeff Heine. But we're excited to be back. Another one of these episodes that our guest is just kind of it's kind of unbelievable to me that we are here talking to John Shults, the founder of True Vintage Guitar right here in Birmingham, Alabama.
That's it. Thank you. Stoked to be here.
Hey, man, we're really excited to have you. This is, just an unbelievable space, and what you're doing is awesome, and we can't wait to hear more about it. So,
Thank you.
I guess I kind of just gave you a brief intro. Anything else?
Yeah.
Did I miss anything?
No. Well, let me just briefly talk about the space.
Yeah.
So, Morgan Sowards, Morgan Johnston, local Birmingham people, sort of designed this place down on between First Avenue North and Morris Avenue. And I just knew when I bought it I wasn't going to be able to just come up with a beautiful design, but they just nailed it. I remember when Morgan Johnston showed me a picture, she was like, "You should have a rug kind of like this one." And I was like, "No, I'm going to have that rug." So I ordered it that day, and I was like, this is awesome. So they're both very talented, creative people.
That's awesome.
So.
They do have a gift. Morgan Johnston, for all you Woodlawn folks of old, was, I imagine probably really involved in the space of Club Duquette as well.
Yeah. Loved
that's
Club
her
Duquette.
Pookie. But that space also, I remember having many cool, cozy rugs.
Yeah,
remember that?
it was killer. I loved going in there. Such a cool thing for Birmingham to have had.
Yeah.
RIP.
Hey, it comes and goes. It'll be back one day.
Yeah, I hope
I'm
so.
Sure. So, John, tell us about you're from Birmingham?
Yep, I'm from Birmingham originally. Grew up sort of south of town, down 280.
Let's go.
Went to the University of Alabama. Moved back here.
Love it. Where'd you go to high school at?
I went to Brightwood High School.
Come on.
Let's
Go
go.
Lions.
Wait, actually, never mind. I was going to say, what year did you graduate high school?
2007.
Okay, sweet.
Yeah.
You know anybody who went to school there then?
My pops went there, but
Whoa.
did not graduate in 2007.
Yeah.
What did he graduate? 98?
86.
86.
Still yet to be born.
Just missed you by about 20 years.
Yeah.
Close, man, close.
Real close.
Yeah.
Do you know, I know my dad and then everyone who's my age who went to
Yeah.
Briarwood.
Yeah.
So I have long before and a little bit after.
Yep.
John, what do you do? Where are we?
Yeah. So we are in the showroom for True Vintage Guitar. That's the name of my company, and I buy and sell vintage collectible guitars. I appraise vintage collectible guitars, photograph, study, write about, get to play, but not professionally. You play guitars, and so I'm so privileged to get to have this space. Bought it back in 2022, renovated it, moved in 2023. And it's my office, really. It's sort of a by-appointment showroom. So if you're listening, you like vintage guitars, and you'd like to come here, I'd love to have you. Got to make an appointment. Because it's just me here. No employees, just the dog.
Yeah, we have also another guest today, May.
Yeah.
We didn't introduce him or her.
Yeah, she may,
I'll put a picture up.
be
'cause
bothered
she's
to
not
wake
in
up.
She's not in the shot.
She's going to be asleep.
She's having
She
a good
looks
time.
peaceful right now. I'm not going to interrupt
Does
that.
she stay here, or do you take her home?
No, I take her home.
Okay.
Yeah, she's a retired racing greyhound. She's 11 years old, and she's a crotchety old lady a little bit. But
She's sweet.
she's awesome. So
If I raced her, how badly would she beat me?
it depends on how badly she wanted it. If this were 5 years ago, didn't matter how much she wanted it. She would just own you. But Yeah, she's showing her age now. I have to like pick her up and carry her up and down the stairs every day, put her in the back of the truck and take her back out. And
wow,
so
she's lovely.
There was a dog as we were walking in that a woman walked outside with to let it use the bathroom, and May is probably 30 times as big as that dog.
As a little French bulldog.
Yeah. I've seen that one.
Man. Okay, so you talked about this a second ago before we started recording, but you graduated from University of Alabama.
Did you study music there?
I did not. I studied business administration.
Nice.
Let me start sort of before that, because I think the story of this place goes back a long, long time. I guess with vintage guitars, I sort of always saw them from afar in high school and stuff and thought, whoa, those are so incredible. I'll never get to, touch a vintage guitar, but maybe I'll get like a reissue of a Les Paul or a Strat or something like that, and, Jazz Masters and that kind of thing. And then I went to college and was studying business administration, and I guess it was sophomore year, 2009, my roommate was like, yeah, I want to get a new guitar. I've got some money. I want to get like a nice guitar. I was like, oh, man, I'd love to help. I look at guitars all day on the computer. It's just what I did. I loved looking at guitars on eBay and that sort of thing. And so I was on Craigslist. It was like Craigslist heyday. No Facebook Marketplace in 2009. And or if it was there wasn't anything on it. It was all about Craigslist. And I found this 1972 Martin D35, which not a terribly high-end collectible guitar, but a great guitar, a quality, technically vintage acoustic guitar. And so I showed it to him. I was like, dude, this is a killer deal. This is like $1,000. On eBay, these are, $1,500 to $1,700. This is a great deal. It was like down in Georgia. We were in Tuscaloosa, so it was a couple hours away. And I was like, we should go down and buy this. Like, this would be a great guitar for you. And he was like, okay, but that's an old guitar. I was like, yeah, right? Like, it's an old one. That's a real one.
Yeah.
Like the original. And he was like, I don't want an old guitar. And I was like blown away. I was like, what do you mean you don't want an old guitar? I didn't realize that like that wasn't everyone's dream,
Right.
Sort of like back in high school when I had, I was working at a vet clinic, and that's where they had a Greyhound, and so that was kind of sparked my love for Greyhounds. But I was working at this vet clinic, and I put some money together to buy a car because I was sharing a car with my brother and sister. And my mom drove past this 1980 MGB, which is like...
That's so cool.
The precursor to the Miata, you know, like the English-made...
tiny little roadster car.
Tiny rubber band motor, roadster car. It was like a couple $1,000. And I was like, oh, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen. So I went and bought that. And it wasn't...
that was your first car?
That was my first.
That's
Dude,
so freaking cool.
Me and you are going to get along very well.
I don't know if my son will get that privilege, because as I look back on that, I was like, oh, that was a terrible...
I could have. You very well could have beat Dad right now.
Yeah. There was no impact zone, no airbags, no nothing on that guitar. Barely got above 50 miles an hour, honestly. But it didn't need to go any faster than 50 miles an hour. So,
Dude, you can tell you speak on guitars all day because you just said guitar instead of car.
Oh, my God. I didn't even notice it.
Oops. That's
anyway,
so cool.
That's
it
awesome.
it dawned on me later that I wasn't the coolest kid in school with that car.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Because you didn't have a brand new
the people-
350Z or
right,
whatever.
the people, my buddy with the RX-8, he was the
Right.
cool guy.
Right.
I just didn't know it.
Yeah.
So.
This is literally exactly how I feel about the Metro.
Yeah.
I bought this 1991.
He's a little bit different.
I bought this 1991 Geo Metro, like convertible.
Yes. Mhm.
Same thing. Like literally, it's like
Oh,
a
yeah.
toy car, and I just literally thought it was like the coolest thing ever.
Wow.
And whatever I pulled up to, people are like, "What? What is that? Why do you have that?"
Yeah.
Why are you driving that?
Like, to me, old things were and are just naturally cooler, even
So
if
cool.
they don't drive
Absolutely.
as well,
Yeah.
or maybe sometimes they don't play as well, or I don't know. That was just what I always loved. I always loved the old stuff, and so in 2009 when I found that guitar, I just couldn't understand that this guy didn't think that was the coolest guitar available. So I was like, well, I mean, it's a great deal. I was working for my dad's company at the time. It was a commercial cleaning company, so I went around and cleaned banks in college also the coolest kid in college. So by then I had sold my MGB and had a hand-me-down minivan because
I love that.
you know,
Cool car to other cool car.
right. Well, quick
You gotta keep
aside
moving up.
A
is
lot of
that-
sorority girls in Alabama, you know.
right.
You got to be able to fit a lot of them in there.
Yeah. Well, we took all the seats out of the back
Even
because
more room for it.
because my buddy and I had bought this old stand-up jet ski, you know,
No way.
for nothing, and we were fixing it up, and we would, you know, ride it down. What's the river that goes through Tuscaloosa?
The Coosa.
Yeah,
Not the Coosa. What
it's
is that?
I don't know. I know it's just called Lake Tuscaloosa. Like whenever it's there, I don't know what it is.
Oh,
I have
anyway.
no idea.
The Chattahoochee, the Mississippi.
Yeah, I don't know. Not those.
Sipsy?
So we would back that minivan down the boat ramp and just hand launch the jet ski out of
That's
the back of
crazy.
the minivan.
That is awesome.
And most of the time it ran. So, you know.
Big win.
Anyway, so I had you know a little bit extra money, and I went down and drove down and bought that D35, and I had just started dating my girlfriend, now wife. So
Let's
I had
go.
it
Shout out.
a couple.
What's her name?
Her name is Liz.
Liz.
Liz
Shout out
Shults.
Liz Schultz.
She's a teacher at Homewood High School.
Fantastic.
go.
So yeah.
Go Patriots.
Yep. hmm
Wow.
So anyway, I had it for a couple months, and then she was like, "So, are you gonna sell it?" And I was like, "Wow, I don't know. I really love this guitar, but as much as I love Martins, I really love Gibson guitars. So if I want to go buy a Gibson, I've got to sell this one. Maybe I can make a little, roll that into a Gibson." So that's what I did. Sold it on eBay, and shipped it out to France or something. And
Whoa.
I was just like, this was crazy. You know, I got to make a little money, and I got to fix up this guitar and get it, you know, playing just right. And now I can go find the Gibson that I've always dreamed of. And so it just started spinning out from there. You know, I was working, cleaning banks, studying guitars on Craigslist, you know,
That's crazy.
reading everything that I could and just enjoying every second of it. So then it was a Gibson Southern Jumbo, and then it was a little collection of Tweed amps that none of them were grounded. You know, they were like 50s, you know, Fender amps.
Yeah.
So my buddy and I were like in my dorm playing on those amps, and he had a harmonica and a harmonica mic plugged in, and I had like his, you know, Stratocaster plugged into like a Tweed Champ, and he had a Tweed Deluxe or something. And he was trying to show me like where on the fretboard to play, and he touches the string
No.
while holding the mic, and just blew up.
Yikes.
He lit himself up doing
my
that. So anyway,
gosh.
we service the amps now.
Good.
Yeah, if we're planning on doing that. So I just started doing that a bunch in college, and I just loved every second of it. You know, I was doing my best to, you know, keep school in mind, and, you know, but I kind of knew that I didn't want to like go manage something, you know, company office
Yeah.
somewhere. I just wanted to do this thing, although I sort of knew it was a real job for other people, you know, like
Yeah.
in Nashville or, you know, in New York, in Los Angeles, you know, that's a real job. But for me, it'll always be just sort of a fun thing that I'll get to do on the side. And graduated, got married, and moved to Nashville, looked for jobs there, and it was 2011, you know, so we graduated when the tornado came through Tuscaloosa.
Oh,
They
wow.
were just
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
all right, get
Man.
out, you're done, you got A's, you know, go home, you know, so terrible graduation there, but terrible time for Tuscaloosa. So it's amazing to go back now and look at it and like, this is
Oh, yeah.
a completely
Especially
different.
that area where like the tornado came through.
Yeah.
Completely different now.
It was wild, man. We were in the basement of, I forgot the name of the dorm, one of the old dorms, and I like looked out the door, like kind of climbed out the basement, looked out the door, and could see between two buildings just like a column of what looked like black, you know,
Oh,
like
gosh.
dark gray, and it was like, oh, we're going back down in the
That's
basement.
Wow.
you
crazy.
know, so it was insane. But anyway, so we graduated, got married, moved to Nashville. Couldn't really find work in the jobs we were looking for. You know, applied at Gibson and a couple other places, and just never really found what we were looking for. So we were there for a month and a half, and then my dad said, "Well, I have, you know, work back at my company, and so you can come, do some work here, or whatever you want to do. So I said, yeah, that sounds good. I'm married now, so I can't just like play around with stuff all day. It sort of means a little more. So moved back to Birmingham. Was working for my dad's company for about 2 years, and just living in an apartment down 280 and doing guitars on the side and just loving every second of it. Just learning everything that I could. Was really focusing on acoustic guitars back then. Really loved Gibson acoustic guitars from the 30s and 40s. And it was great. And then the sort of job with my dad, I think his business kind of needs changed, and it wasn't an industry I was passionate about, and so my wife just said one day, she was just like, I think you need to go explore what this guitar thing is. We don't know if it's a real job or not. You should just go find out. You should, if you want to, make a full-time go of this. So that was 2014. And we sort of set a goal, like it needs to, make this much money to keep going. And, it was low, a low goal. But she was like, if it doesn't work out, then you can look for something else. And so I was like, wow, this is amazing privilege to have someone just say, I've got us, you need to go figure out what this is. So she just believed. I think she just saw what it meant to it. Just I have sort of, I think, probably undiagnosed ADHD with that hyper fixation,
Yeah.
Totally.
I think most of this business is built off of undiagnosed hyper fixation.
Absolutely.
Maybe, I don't know. So I did, and went full time February 2014, and just sort of did that all the time. We didn't have a kid, we didn't have a house, we were just in a cheap apartment and living off of. She was a teacher, and so we were, having a blast. And I just worked 7 days a week, but what didn't feel like work. Obviously, it just felt like, just the freedom to go and pursue this interest and this knowledge and this whatever it was. Had no idea really. So it sort of bumped along for a few years after that. The way I wanted to build this business was all cash. I just didn't, I don't know if it was maybe a lack of confidence about getting loans to sort of business loans. I'm not sure. I just was averse to that. And, I was 25, and so we just didn't need a lot of money. We just sort of every dollar I made, I rolled back into more guitars and just tried to build the collection of guitars for sale and build the kind of pile of money to buy more guitars with, and kind of started to gradually increase the quality of guitars I was able to find. And so it was all built on Craigslist and Facebook and, all that stuff. And I also sort of discovered Instagram back in 2012, so I got on Instagram, and just started posting about guitars. I think, there's a lot of problematic things about social media, but one of the cool things is that if you have a weird interest that none of the local people share as deeply, you can find those other weird people in France that are like, oh, I know that's this guitar and this weird fact about it, and I also have one with that serial number range, and so it was basically that for many years, just sharing guitars and the interesting stuff I found out about them, and I just loved it. It grew pretty organically. I guess you could grow organically back in those days before Meta and whatnot. So it just did that until about 2020, and that's sort of when it hit a turning point where a critical mass of inventory and cash on hand to buy, and sort of getting a name as someone who buys that stuff. So let's say, we were talking about this before we hit record, let's say you're in Idaho, and you inherit a high-end vintage guitar that is valuable, and you sort of know when it was made and what makes it special, but what do you do then? Where would you sell it? What would you do? Maybe you would go on Facebook, or maybe you would go on eBay, but those sort of have their own pitfalls, and so sort of became known as someone that buys that stuff, and just sort of hit that. I guess COVID had a lot to do with it as well. Everybody was at home and wanted to play guitar, it just really spun up during that time. I also became a dad in 2020. And I guess it's sort of like, all right, we're not playing around anymore. Like,
Yeah. There are stakes.
Yeah, there were stakes involved. So basically from 2014 to 2020, we didn't pay out any of the money that I made to our family. We rolled every dollar back in except for a car purchase because we had a car die on us and a down payment on a house in 2016. Every other dollar was spent buying more guitars because we sort of knew like if this was really going to be a thing, there needs to be a critical mass of just cash on hand. When a very expensive guitar pops up, can't be looking for loans or can't be I didn't want to do the strategy of like, okay, well I'll get the lead on where the guitar is and then I'll pitch it to someone else I'll make a little in the middle. That wasn't why I got into it. I got into it because I wanted to own and experience and document and write about and learn about these guitars. There wasn't really a good way to do that here in Birmingham. And I suppose I was sort of lucky to not get a job in Nashville because I think that may have placated me for a time instead of kind of driving that like. The sort of need drove the interest and it sort of fed off itself, 2020 comes around, COVID, man, what a time. I worked every day anyway, so it wasn't any different for me, like I did guitars every day of the week. Yeah. It wasn't that much different, but I became a dad. So now we have a 5-year-old little dude. His name's Michael. He's so awesome. Every day is so new and like new challenges. Yeah. Really, really tough to be a parent, to be a dad, but so fun.
That rocks.
The other day, he had a bike and he really saw his friends riding on those training wheels. And he's like, I really want training wheels. I'm like, okay, but. That's not really the most fun you can have riding a bike. You can have them if that's what you want, but I think we need to work towards taking those off. And he kind of heard me, but he didn't really want to for a while. And then one day he was just like, I think I want to try with the training wheels off. And so I was like, all right, let's go get the toolbox. And I showed him the ratchet, showed him how to use it. And he took them off himself, and we went down to Railroad Park. And after about 45 minutes to an hour of really pushing hard, he wanted to give up so many times. I was just like, no, buddy, you're going to love it. Yeah. You just need to believe. And he did it. So I've got that video on my phone.
Let's go.
That I'll like just cherish forever.
That's awesome.
So, So being a dad's amazing, but it's really, really hard. So don't hear me say it's not difficult. It's very difficult too.
The last guy we had on the podcast, he has 2 daughters, 15 and 12.
Awesome. Wow.
And we were talking to him. We were like, is it possible for us to even like get what this is like? And his response was like, it's harder and better than I ever thought it would be.
Yeah. Can confirm.
It's so worth it, but it is also so challenging.
You will never be the same ever again. It's not possible to be the same ever again after becoming a parent.
That's awesome.
Man.
So anyway, the stakes sort of went up a little bit in 2020.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I just started. I think sort of one thing I noticed over time was that these high-end guitars. There's a business decision for those sellers, and then there's also a hard decision for those sellers. And what I sort of noticed was that when those sellers saw my heart for the guitar as well as the business side, I mean the numbers had to be right, but also the heart for that guitar, and they enjoyed that, and they wanted to see that person work for it in other ways than just money. And so, one of the things that I sort of decided early on is like, it doesn't matter where the guitar is, it matters what the guitar is. So in 2021, when a 1958 Gibson Les Paul Standard sort of known in the vintage guitar world as like that's the blue chip, the number one. You know, it's not the most valuable. There's about 1,500, 1,200, 1,500 of them made, but they're all six-figure, you know, guitars. Every single one of them, no matter what condition, they're the most sought after. Like of the guitars that there's more than like 20. You know,
Right.
That's the one. That's the most competitive. And I always dreamed of being a part of one of those deals. I knew that I wasn't going to ask my family to sacrifice to own one of those for long term.
Right.
But that was where I wanted to go back in 2012 and 13. Back in the apartment, quick stories that. So a story of failure and a story of success surrounded those guitars. Was that 2012, I think, maybe 2013. I'm sitting in my apartment around the dinner table, and I'm on Instagram, and I'm searching hashtags for Les Paul. You know,
Yeah.
just I like Les Pauls. Hashtag Les Paul. You know, so like I'm just looking at those, and I'm like liking pictures and leaving comments, and then I come across this one picture that didn't make any sense to me. It was 2013, so the picture was taken on like a potato, and it's like 6 pixels, but I could see a picture of a Les Paul Standard, and I could see that the tuning machines were crumbled, like the plastic on the tuning machine was crumbled and deteriorating, and I was like, wow, someone went to some crazy lengths to make this look real. Like this is crazy. I've never seen someone break the tuner buttons to make it look like a real one. And I'm looking at the rest of it and like, this is the most convincing copy I've ever seen. This looks like a real, like in the wild Les Paul Standard, from one of the most desirable years, 1958. So that was 1960. That one was 1960. And so I could see all the specs lined up for 1960. It had double line Clusons, and it had reflector knobs and like all these things. And I'm like, as I'm looking at it, I'm like, these are the best fakers in the world. This is a real guitar. It's like, this is either a real guitar or the most convincing fake I've ever seen. And I look at the caption and it says, this is my uncle's guitar and he passed away. It's 75 years old or something. And I like did the math, and I don't remember how old they said it was, but it didn't line up to 1960. And I was like, what is happening here? Why are these are these people trolls, or like, what is happening? And I reached out to the person and sent him a DM, and I was like, hey, I don't know what's happening here, but this sure looks like a 1960 Les Paul Standard, which would be one of the most valuable vintage guitars, in the world. This is an exceptional guitar. I'd love to chat with you more about this. And I screenshotted the post. I don't even know why. I just screenshotted it because I wanted to look at it later without pulling up Instagram or something. So they blocked me, deleted the post, and I was like,
whoa,
what just happened?
That's crazy.
Was this like a fake? I was like, what's the troll? I didn't get it. I didn't understand what was happening. But I would pull those pictures back up and I'd show them to friends and just be like, what is happening here? And they would be like, I don't know. That looks real. So I started sort of like had an Instagram handle, and I had a picture, and that's all I had of the people that owned this guitar. This was 2013. So I just did this major deep dive on like who these people were, and just trying to figure out what is happening here. Right? I was just like, my hyperfixation was just like overdrive. Like, this doesn't make any sense, and I've got to figure out why. And they never responded. They would never reach back out. Found them on like Facebook. They would delete, block. It was so weird. I just couldn't figure out what was going on. And every year I would try to get in contact with them. Every year. Or every 6 months, and I would try to find someone else in the family or something. Until about 2019. They would never respond. No one would respond with anything. I was pretty sure they were in Canada. So it wasn't like I could just drive over.
Hop over, yeah.
And so in 2019, someone responded and said, I think I remember that was my uncle's guitar, and I think that a cousin has it, and they live in Oklahoma. I was like, whoa, can you get me in touch with this cousin? I'd love to know what's going on. So it took a couple weeks, and I had never had one of these guitars. I never even held one in my hands, but I had looked at a million pictures and read a million books on them. And, I think I got in touch with their son, and just told him who I was, what I did, why I was reaching out. And I guess he mentioned it to his mom, and eventually she contacted me back and was like, yeah, do you want to FaceTime? I'll show you the guitar. I was like, awesome, let's do it. So we pull up FaceTime, and there is a 1960 Les Paul Standard laying on the railing of the porch of a mobile home in Oklahoma.
Holy
and
cow.
she's like,
Oh
here
my
it is.
gosh.
And I was like,
Get it off the rail.
I was just like, I couldn't even talk for a minute. I was like, that's real. I was like, this is exceptional. We should probably get it off the railing. I didn't know what to say. And she was like, well, what do you want to know about it? And I was like, well, I guess I want to know everything about it, but she was like, well, what year do you think it's from? I was like, well, it's got reflector knobs, double ring Closen tuners. Everything here looks like 1960, but if you flip it over, there's going to be a serial number on the back, and be happy to, help you read the serial number. So she flips it over, it says 0 prefix 1960, and even in like the serial number range that I thought it was, the 7,000 range. I was like, there you go. That's a 1960 Les Paul Standard. And that's when I made my mistake. And she says, well, what do you think it's worth? And at the time, I'd never been involved with one of those deals. I didn't really know. So I said, this is an extremely valuable guitar. And what I should have said is, this is a 6-figure guitar, low 6-figure guitar, and been a little more specific, but I didn't really know, like it had a crack between the knobs, and I didn't know my stuff. I didn't have my chops. I didn't yet have the skills to serve those people. But I didn't know that.
You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, and she had told me, we will never sell this guitar. I was like, that's totally fine. You should probably get it insured. Like, let's do an appraisal and, that kind of stuff. I was like, I'm not asking you to sell it. I just thought you guys needed to know what this was. And she's like, yeah, we're planning on mounting it to the wall.
Like drilling it to the wall?
Drilling it to the wall.
Holy cow.
And I was like, well, this is an extremely valuable guitar. I don't recommend doing that. And she's like, well, we're never going to sell it, so it doesn't matter. I'm like, okay, that's totally fine. What I've come to know now is what she meant was we would never sell it if it was like only a couple grand.
Right.
But this was a, 6-figure guitar, so that's totally different.
Yeah.
And I guess I didn't know what I was doing. And, and I didn't really know exactly what it was worth at the time. I had never done one of these deals. I like to think of those burst deals as an island only found by those who already know where it is. To quote Jack Sparrow. You sort of have to already be there to know exactly what these guitars bring, because it's not like someone's like publicizing the dollar amount that they bought theirs for or whatever, and they change over time.
Yeah.
They were.
Do these kind of guitars typically transact privately? Like there's
Yes.
not like an auction or something?
Very rarely do
Okay.
they. Very rarely. It's not going to be on eBay.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, they do trade hands. They're sort of a known players. If you want to buy one, you sort of reach out to 10. You watch 10 shops and you'll find one. You know. And sometimes they're publicly listed, but I wasn't sure they actually bring those.
Right.
There's never like a price, $350,000 and then sold on this date.
Right.
That didn't exist, and they hadn't even reached that point really, back then. So, and not even this one too, because it was the least desirable year. It had a big crack in the top. The values vary wildly based on the amount of figure in the wood, the amount of color left in the sunburst, because it fades over time. Originality, whether or not there are cracks, and so I was just sort of drowning in the 5 or 6 year hunt to like find this thing, and I couldn't believe it was real, and I just didn't know what I was doing back then. So I was like, well, this is an extremely valuable guitar. I know you don't want to sell, and that's totally fine. Why don't you let me come up there? And it had like little pieces of paper shoved in the saddles, the bridge saddle where like the string goes over, so you couldn't play the guitar, and it had 5 missing tuners. And I was like, I have exact reproduction tuners, and I have exact reproduction saddles that we can just easily install in 20 minutes, string it up, it can be playable. Let me document it, and we'll get you an appraisal on it. I was gonna go find out the information I needed, and she's like, yeah, that sounds good. And I guess when I said extremely valuable, I was thinking 6 figures, and what she was thinking $6,000,
Right.
you know, something like that. So we get off the phone and she does a quick Google search and finds one for sale for $350,000, and she says, "Oh, I didn't know it was that kind of guitar." And I was like, "Yeah, that's what extremely valuable means."
Yeah.
But I was like, she was showing a 59 with a bunch of flame and color. So I was like, well, that yours isn't that. It's not the same thing. A 59 has a different neck profile, and this one was sort of a plain top. It was not in the same ballpark as the 59 that had been available for a year, and not found yet a buyer. So, you know, but I told her, I was like, yeah, that's what I meant by extremely valuable. You know, so let's get this date set up to check it out, and we'll go from there. And so we get off the phone. She immediately contacts everyone she can, all 10 other players that actually deal in those guitars, and I lost the guitar.
Dang.
Of course I did, because I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know where the island was. You know, so but it was funny because, you know, I had reached out to a customer of mine, Joe Bonamassa. A lot of people know in the vintage guitar world, big blues player. And we were going to kind of tag team that guitar. It was the only guitar I'd ever was going to just be the middleman, because it was so much money. You know, it was like, I'm not going to try to, I can't afford that. At the time I could not. I can now. So if those who are listening have one, I can't afford one. We're good. So anyway, you know, about a month later, Joe is in a guitar shop in Nashville. And the owner of the shop calls him over and says, "Hey, you should check out this Les Paul that just walked in."
Gosh.
And he opens it up and he says, "Oh, you're John's friends." You know, after they had told me, "Don't contact us again. You know, we don't want to work with you. We're already set." And so I have of two minds about that deal. You know, I'm obviously devastated that it didn't work out, but I'm happy that family was served in the best way possible by the shop that had the chops.
Yeah.
And now I know where the island is. I got to watch that deal go down and sort of figured out the process. So in 2021, when a 58 Les Paul popped up in South Africa, I knew the numbers to the T. I knew everything I needed to know on that one. And I told them, I was like, you know, this is March 2020. It was February 2021 in South Africa. The code variant in South Africa, that was the one to look out for. It was not yet the one that we had. And I said, you know, I will pay this much money for this guitar, and I will fly to South Africa and do this deal in person. And the other shop had basically the same offer, but they were going to have to ship it. And so they went with me, which I was thrilled over. So
it's a long flight.
yeah, it was.
I've made that flight. It's a really long flight.
All right, where in South Africa?
We went to a place called Pietermaritzburg. It's on the east coast. We flew through Johannesburg to get down there.
Yeah. Wow.
So we did DC to Johannesburg. That
Wow.
was
Dang.
like 18, 20 something hours.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah, mine was not that long. My leg was different. I think it took like 35 hours to get there, but it wasn't one leg. So it was like, if I remember, it was maybe Philadelphia to the Netherlands to Cape Town. So this guitar was in Cape Town, South Africa, which is a beautiful city.
Yeah, gorgeous.
It was like the LA of South Africa. You know, it was awesome. I mean, it was like I was on cloud nine the whole time to have finally gotten to that point of knowing where the island was, knowing these numbers inside and out, to the point where I can deliver a ton of value to that seller, deliver a ton of value to that buyer, and you know, get to experience this guitar that I had truly dreamed about and had snatched out of my clutches, you know, back in 2019.
How fast did it sell?
So that one I did work with Joe again.
Okay.
So but that was the last one that was sort of tag teamed. So
have you gotten more?
Yeah.
Les Paul since then?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah. So and every time it's new, every deal is completely different, and every guitar is a case by case basis, and every little detail matters so much. So it's truly a dream come true to just be at the table on any of these deals, and it's incredible. So the South Africa one, I flew there, and before I went to my bank and said, I'm going to have to send a 6-figure wire transfer of someone else's money to Africa.
Like CIA contacted immediately.
Yeah, and the bank is just like, hey, that's not real, right? And I was like, no, I actually do know. It is real. I know for a fact this is real. And
you're like, no, I'm an international businessman.
Well, I wasn't. I wasn't at the time. I
Yeah.
happen to be one now, but I wasn't at the time. That was sort of the first international deal. But now it happens all the time. It's like a couple times a year. Not burst, but like international deals, because it doesn't matter where the guitar is; it matters what.
Yeah.
So, there's a maze. A leash in the background clinking around, but I got to fly over there, and it was a guitar shop, just a typical music store where this family had walked it in to help sell it, so they connected with me, and so I got on the ground with a guitar, and it's just like shaking, just this is the most, I wanted the deal to go well so badly. What if I get there and there's a hidden headstock repair? What if I get there and it's not real and it's the most faked guitar, the Les Paul Standard from 58 to 1960.
Yeah.
I mean, there's fake ones traded today.
Yeah. And I keep thinking of Car World like the whole time you're talking about this, and I keep thinking of Porsche 356s.
Okay.
Because they're faked all the time, but the real ones are worth so much.
Yes.
And like people hunt these cars to figure out. It's there's so many overlaps.
Yeah, and every little detail matters.
Yeah.
And the stakes are so high on each one. On this one, and I just loved the guitar. The guitar had loads of issues. They had put this weird plastic bridge on there, and but at its heart, I could tell it was like, this is going to be a great guitar.
Do you have photos of this on social media, like on Instagram and stuff?
Yeah, it's from a couple years ago. There's a poster over here that my friend Eleanor took pictures of it. It's now owned by Joe Bonamassa.
That's awesome.
And so he tours it and plays it live.
So
and
cool.
So yeah,
killer.
I know Joe Bonamassa as a musician, fully. Is he more business side than player, or is he just into vintage guitars because he's a player?
Joe is an extremely unique individual in that he is equally as good of a player as he is a vintage guitar expert.
Okay. That's awesome.
He's unlike anyone else I really know. To me, it seems like in this world, you're either a just killer player, and you sort of like vintage guitars and sort of know enough to be dangerous, or you're like a vintage guitar nerd and don't ask me to get up on stage right now. It's not going to go well.
He's best of both.
He is.
That's really cool.
It's incredible. It really is. So
have you ever worked with Mark Spear, the guy from Krunkben?
No, I don't believe so.
He's one of those guys. I was curious if you had before, because he has a secret identity. Literally no one knows who he
maybe
is.
I have.
Yeah. Laura Lee is the other girl. But you have your basses over there. I forget what it's called, but those Fender basses with the metal bridge
G
thing
bass.
with them on them.
Those are P basses.
Mm-hmm.
So this past year, Fender came out with it's the first time in over 80 years, which presumably would be the Beatles. I don't know what band 80 years ago. Maybe I don't know. But the first time they ever came out with signature guitars for two people from the same band at the same time, which is kind of, I guess, a random thing. But usually they do an individual person, like Les Paul makes a Les Paul.
Yeah.
But they came out with a Laura Lee jazz bass and a Mark Spear.
He plays a Strat.
What is it called?
Stratocaster.
Stratocaster.
Yeah.
At the same time, but he is a nut about this kind of stuff.
Okay.
And they're also vinyl heads.
Okay.
And, like Myers told you earlier, I'm really into audiophile. I'm kind of an audiophile about gear with amps and speakers and stuff regarding vinyl. And that stuff's the same as this. If you find the certain type, the certain name brands, it can become $100,000 really fast.
Wow.
But one of the reasons that I love their music so much is because they're such nerds about it. And it's it's just good music, and it makes sense that guy's a blues. I've never heard of him before. I probably, if I look him up, I will have heard his music.
Your parents have.
But blues is kind of just one of those types of music that if you like texture, it's everything. And I mean, blues was originated. I mean, out of people it was like a slave type, but it was like originated in like slavery, like slaves created, I guess. And they obviously had to have like beat up old guitars that are like passed down from generation to generation to generation. So I imagine that's probably like so fun for him to have that connection between the two.
Yeah. The vintage guitars and blues. Yeah, of course. And he's like a true blues player and a true vintage guitar nerd. And in that he tours with this, rack of 20, high-end vintage guitars. And, 3 of them will be what we call bursts, Les Pauls from 1958 to 1960. That kind of one of 1,400, 1,500, however many there are. And sometimes it's the one he got from me, and sometimes it's, this one or that one. And then the rest are also amazing vintage guitars too. I like to say, like with vintage guitars, the price of them is not usually related to exactly how good of a guitar it is. Sometimes it's vaguely, but it's, the price of a vintage guitar is based on supply and demand. That's just sort of how in the perfect world, every one of us would have a 59 burst that's mint with mega flame and deep color. We don't live in that perfect world, unfortunately, and so just money is a part of it. Just because they're scarce resources. But anyway, so he and like the amplifiers he uses, he has the amp Shantytown. Yeah. He's got 2 high-powered twins, $20,000 each.
Wow.
just the amps, and then he's got dumble amps that are $150K.
I really kind of want to go see him play.
Yeah.
Next time he plays somewhere around here.
You need to. He plays in Birmingham once or twice a year.
Wow. No way.
Yeah, it's a good time.
Just to like look at his gear.
He's like, it's like also, he's not like your head like people's music. It's like sick. Like you'd be like, this is so.
We kind of have a thing where you listen to like Wolfpack or Jacob Collier. We always
Jacob Collier. Like I stopped playing music because I'm just gonna listen to this guy all day. I'm not picking up an instrument again.
Like musicians love the musician's favorite band is like those people. What's like the Wolfpack guys, the other guy's name that I always mess with?
Corey Wong.
Corey Wong.
Yes.
You ever work with him at all?
No.
I mean, he plays his guitars.
Love
I guess.
to. Yeah. Well, I mean, so do I mean, like all of my buyers play. Like I have not met the high-end vintage guitar buyer that doesn't play or doesn't intend to play the guitar they're buying.
Yeah.
I mean, the guitars that don't get played is just a super small subset of guitars that are just so special that it doesn't make sense, because there's another one that's similar you can play, but this one is the original on which the others are based, like George Harrison's Futurama guitar. If you've ever seen that, he played in like the German clubs. It's like a Strat copy, a very crude Stratocaster copy. I got to hold that guitar.
Wow.
In London, and I was just like, someone take this from me. I'm gonna break it if I just I can't do this. I don't need to play this. It was amazing to hold it, and my friend and customer who allowed me, it was a dream, to hold that guitar. But I was like, I don't want to play this. I'm way too scared to play this guitar.
Okay, I have a couple questions.
Yeah.
My first one is, what is your like? I mean, I could probably guess what your take is gonna be, but what is your like amp sim like take? Like, how do you feel about like Kempers and like everything like
Time
that?
and place for everything.
Speak in English for the rest of us.
Amp sim, or like a Helix or anything like that is like, there's analog guitar pedals where you pick each effect you want, put it on the board, and you make a like chain of pedals that's your like tone. An amp simulator is like really well done, like digital copies of those analog pedals.
Ah, gotcha.
And like Jack plays a Kemper, and like Jack's tone is fantastic.
Yeah.
But it's like copying all these analog pedals that were made a long time
it's
ago.
like one pedal that takes, it copies a bunch of other pedals and puts it into like
one,
a smaller,
or like amps. It
thing.
copies amps as well, not just the pedals. So
yeah.
We're sorry, what were you saying?
I love them. I think they're fantastic. Cool. I think there's a time and place for all of that. You can see on my desk over here. Oh, what brand is that? This is not a sponsored thing, obviously, because I don't even remember what the brand is. But it's it's an amplifier sim that I can play through headphones. I did notice once I bought this place. Okay, so when I bought this place in the original design, I told the contractor, I was like, I have to have sound deadening and soundproofing in this place because I will crank these amps.
Yeah.
and I will pay to have that privilege because, people live here. The first floor of this building is commercial, and the top 2 floors are residential. So I was like, I'm only going to be playing Monday through Friday, 8 to 4.
Yeah.
That's when I'm here. But like, I just want to be able to do that. That's what this space is for. And I've got to have, I want it to deaden the sound, and I also want it to not bleed over into someone's apartment, because this is like brick walls and wooden floors and stuff. And I don't think we really accomplished that goal.
The curtains probably do it good. They probably help.
My mom made these.
That's awesome.
They're so cool.
So I think one of the things that kind of went into how this came about is I watched both my parents be great entrepreneurs, and just the way they approached work and business. And my dad owns that commercial cleaning company, is hugely successful. But for the longest time, it was a tough time because he had 6 kids. I'm the 5th of 6 kids.
Whoa.
And some tough times, and he just kept at it. Like, that was what he wanted, and he believed. And, he just executed amazingly and sacrificed greatly for us. And my mom made high-end window treatments for designers around town.
That's cool.
I just sort of watched both of them, bootstrap those businesses, and kind of saw, okay, that's what it takes to like make a business. And wow, look at that payoff. There's like you front load so much, and then you benefit greatly from that way later, a decade later, if you're lucky.
Yeah.
And sometimes not. Sometimes it's a bad bet. But they just believed, and they did their best to be excellent in what they're doing every day, and sacrificed greatly. I did mention I went to Briarwood High School, which is an expensive private school, and my parents believed they wanted the best education for us. And I think there were some times where we were sort of comped from friends and family to put us through that school, and I'm so grateful for that sacrifice for them. And
yeah.
And
are any of your siblings also entrepreneurs?
So my sister is a graphic designer. So sort of on the side, she's a mom, but yeah, she does graphic design, and she's fantastic at that. And but I'm sort of the only public business facing person. Also the only like musician person. Like my siblings love music and stuff, and but not. No one was a musician in the family. My grandmother was a pianist and played for the church and sang in the choir, and that was sort of my only connection to music. I think just that, I don't know why, it just felt like gravity to like towards these guitars and music, but that was sort of what I think maybe one reason I don't really have the like musician chops is that I sort of didn't have that brain that could make it up out of nothing and just teach yourself to just like be this like amazing Jacob Collier. Not that you have to be Jacob Collier to be a musician.
There's only
but
one
like,
of them.
Yeah, but I didn't have that thing. What I had was maybe even something a little more unique. That was just that drive to understand the history and the side of music which is strange, and that's the vintage guitar world. I don't know why. That's just what happened. So
something you've said a few times is that you write about guitars.
Yeah,
talk about that more.
Yeah, I mean, just as part of my website, I just love writing about guitars, and I love telling the stories of the guitars, and I like being the place that people can go for information about guitars. I do have some pretty big like serial number pages that are like, one of the things about vintage Gibson guitars is that the serial numbers are not linear. Like with Martin guitars, they started at 1. They're now at 7 million or something like that, and they're just consecutive. Gibson is not like that. They have like 30 different serial number styles, and they reuse the same numbers over and over and over again. So you can't just like go to a serial number, look up, and type in, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. What year is that? That you can't do that because there'd be 4 different answers, and so. So that's part of the website, but also just like when you guys got here, I was writing about this 1964 Gibson Standard that came through the shop recently, and like sometimes Sometimes I'm just out there online buying, and most of the time people come to me and are looking for appraisals and looking to sell, and sometimes it works like this. But this one was just, I was just out there online, and I saw this listing for this 1964 SG Standard, and it didn't make any sense because the guitar looked super clean. And 64 is like the year for the SG Standard. There's not that many of them. And everything changed in 65 for Gibson, where the necks got skinny, the hardware got chrome, and they're just not as finely made as the early 60s. So a 64 is maybe doubly as valuable as a 66. But this one, it looked perfect, and everything looked right, and the serial number looked like 64, except the pickup covers were chrome. And like in the pictures, it looked exactly chrome, and that didn't make sense because it should have been nickel, and nickel has that sort of gray like oxidation on it. So and it had been up for like 3 hours on like reverb.com, and it was just this luthier in Canada selling the guitar for this lady that had walked it into his shop. And so I was like, wow, this is gonna be a tough one to buy because it's in Canada. It's kind of a mess, but also, what is it? Like it was just like 1960s SG Standard. I was like, this could be so many different things. And I looked at it. I was like, this does not make sense. I think most people looked at it and thought this is a 65 that has a skinny neck and it just sort of looks early and cool. But, they probably thought it was a 65, and I did too. But something stuck out of my mind, and I was like, that doesn't make sense. It can't be. It has to be a 64. For some reason it has chrome covers, which sounds like a silly deal, but those details matter so much, like the car world, there's like, this VIN says that it has this color and these options, Of course that doesn't exist for guitars, but basically people were doing the same thing looking at this, and I knew my buddy had been looking at it. And I just hit buy. I was like, I don't know, I'll have it. I'll just, I might be paying too much for this, but I'll take it. And I got it shipped in, and we pulled it out, and I was looking at it. I measured the neck width, and it was a perfect wide neck, the 111/16, which is like the 64 neck. The serial number was 64, and as I took the pickups, kind of removed them for inspection, I could see on the side there was just a tiny bit of graying of that nickel. So it was just a perfectly preserved nickel that looked like chrome. And so that's why.
That's so cool.
That's why it was. It was just an insane find. So I love telling just the story of that guitar. And like, I think the lady may have been served better by someone that knew exactly what it was.
Right.
So I try to write that website to, if you have a 64 Standard, I want you to come to my website and learn everything about it. I want you to learn, what should the pickup covers look like, even if you don't care, or what does that serial number mean? What does it mean to have a wide neck? That term doesn't make sense. Why would you want a neck that's too wide? It's sort of a collector term to refer to a standard neck because Gibson made them all very skinny in the late 60s. So I just love talking about that lore. That's kind of what the Instagram is about. It's about selling guitars because that's sort of how life works. Have to sell them. But I think it's more successful when it's about those interesting stories and details.
Yeah.
And that's what I want it to be about, is like the details. And then if you like those details, you'll probably go to the website and maybe buy it, But if you're not looking to buy, if you are just looking at vintage guitars from afar and you can't afford them, you are welcome here. If you think it's cool that the pickup cover looks chrome but is nickel, you are welcome here. In a perfect world, we would all have a mint 64 SG Standard.
Yeah.
And so I can't give everyone a mint 64 SG Standard, but I can post those pictures inside and out, and I can talk about how, have you ever heard of the term PAF in relation to guitar terms? They're talking about a pickup made by Gibson from 1957 to 1961 or 2, and the stickers on the back have this sticker that says patent applied for. And a pair of those pickups from the late 50s is $10,000, just the pickups.
That's crazy.
And you can buy a reproduction today that sounds fantastic. The originals are $10,000 for a pair. But then in the early 60s, the patent was granted, and they changed the sticker to patent number, and it just has a patent number. So what I was writing about when you guys called was Gibson, I think, intentionally wrote the wrong patent number. It's not the patent number for the pickup.
No way.
Which I think is like a little bit of industrial, sabotage, because they didn't want, it was not a brand new technology. What the pickup does is like, it is a double coil pickup that cancels the hum from an amplifier from like, lights and other electrical interference. And the reason it's special because it sounds great, but it also does that. So if you are, playing gigs in the late 50s in, this dance hall that has terribly dirty power and you have a single coil pickup, it's humming like crazy when you don't have the volume, turned down. And so that's what that pickup did. It was a humbucking pickup, so it canceled out the hum by using like reverse wound coils. And so I think that what Gibson was doing by stamping the wrong patent number on there was trying to misguide you away from finding out what that pickup, how it does what it does.
Huh.
So like that stuff I love.
Yeah.
I love writing about it. I love talking about it. So I was doing that research, and I was like, I kind of remember that story about how the patent number is not the right patent number, but I don't remember what it's a patent to. And it turns out it's a patent to a bridge style that Les Paul actually is granted, the owner of the patent from the early 1950s, universally known as a terrible design.
Yeah.
And so Gibson's
awesome.
saying, you can go copy this terrible design that we don't use anymore if you want.
That's
but
so
you
funny.
can't.
Holy cow. What an Easter egg to find.
Yeah, I don't know. That's the stuff I love. So I love writing that stuff. I'm not a published author, but I love writing about it, and happen to be a published photographer. I think I wouldn't be if I didn't have guitars to photograph. But that's what this book just came in, the Telecaster book, 70 Years by Dave Hunter, and was privileged to have some photographs published in there. And
Sick.
Stratocaster book, and so when I say like to write about. Maybe don't have the credentials there. I'm not an author, but maybe a photographer.
Do you think you would write a book at some point?
My wife has talked to me about that because I do love telling the stories. Maybe I droned on too long about that birth story.
Not at all. That's
From
the
the-
point of the
That
podcast.
was really cool.
I love telling those stories, and I think there is interesting stuff in the vintage guitar world. And in a time where social media is hard to be a part of because the world's not perfect, sometimes you can come across a story about how the patent number on a pickup is incorrect, and like maybe not have to feel the pain of the things that are in social media every second of your life. I don't know.
It's a good point.
Yeah,
I have a few questions.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like this has already been like awesome. Like insufficient. We could wrap right now, but I just like I want to dig in a few ways.
Yeah, please.
I'm so fascinated by you just know that these guitars are the most. Like, do you personally have a favorite guitar?
Oh, it's just whatever is out there that I'm chasing. Or I think recently there's so many favorites, but recently there was one that was a long time hunt that came to fruition in a really cool way, and it's a Fender Jazzmaster from 1960 in a pastel purple color.
Oh, that's good.
Which was incredible because no one had ever seen one.
Yeah.
There's a factory finish from like late 60s or late 50s or early 60s that was like a metallic purple, but never a pastel purple. No one had ever seen one. Kind of in the Fender vintage guitar world, the top of the heap custom color is called shell pink, and it was such a rarely ordered and rarely made color that it's like the most faked color, and it just sort of doesn't exist. I have a book with a picture of one that we know is real. But that's it. Like,
Wow.
I think Flea has a jazz bass that I'm pretty sure is real. And the reason I think it's real is because the real ones, shell pink looks brown. It almost looks, it just looks like pinkish brown, because it often has this clear coat on top that that like kind of yellows and changes
yeah.
it from looking kind of this pastel pink to like a brown, and so Fleas looks like brown, and I'm like, that's probably right, but I haven't looked inside that guitar. And the kind of, sorry, I should probably start with the fact that Fender guitars were offered in the standard color. For the Stratocaster it was Sunburst, for the Jazzmaster it was Sunburst, but if you paid extra you could get a special color. You might get blonde, like the standard color for the Telecaster, or you might get like red. You can see the Stratocaster, which I'll talk about later. That's a 57 Stratocaster in this red color. But people rarely ordered pink, there just wasn't that much out there. And the ones that did get made pink, you can imagine that if it was like a hot pink in the 80s, that was probably killer. But if it was pastel pink in the 70s or 80s, you probably just strip that finish off and put on a sparkle something, or painted it black, something like that.
Yeah.
You didn't want to be caught dead with pastel pink in the 70s or 80s. Same with purple. As far as we know, we have never seen another pastel purple Fender guitar.
So cool.
Until like the late 60s or something, until after like the CBS buyout in 65. So anyway, a couple years ago, someone sent me an email. I think it was 2021 maybe. And they had one picture of a 1960 Fender Jazzmaster, and they said, "This is my father-in-law's guitar. What do you think about it?" And I'm like looking at it, I'm like, all right, competitor friend guy trying to like trick me or something, like this is either, incredibly special or it's not real. I didn't think it was real because it couldn't be real, right? And we'd never seen one.
Totally.
It was just one picture, but I think that like hyperfixation thing stuck out to me, and I was like, no, there's too much happening here that it sort of looks real. I could tell the like forearm area had sort of like turned amber from like your skin oils that sort of oxidize that finish. And I was like,
I was gonna say this Gibson, the blue one kind of has that.
Oh yeah, that's another one of one color. We'll talk about that later.
Okay, sick.
We don't know what that color is.
No way.
So this one, I sent an email back saying, wow, this is exceptional. This is probably not a real Fender finish, but even if it's not, it's awesome. It looks incredible, and I hope that it's real. If it's real, it's a very valuable, guitar, very valuable color. It's a very rare color. And they sent like one email back. I don't remember how the conversation went, but they basically stopped talking to me, which didn't sit well with me. I was like, hold up, wait a second. You can't just like cut off communication,
right.
Like wait a second.
You can't drop this bomb and then disappear.
Yes, like I know it's not your guitar, but like, can we talk to the person that does own it? And even if you don't want to sell, I totally get that. Not everybody that reaches out to me wants to sell, and the information is free no matter if you want to sell or not. There is no obligation. It's not like that. But when you drop that bomb on me,
totally,
at least call me on the phone to talk about it. Send me a couple pictures. Let's at least document it to figure out what this is. We got to figure out what this is. So, I do as much sleuthing as I can to just figure out what is happening. No metadata on the picture, nothing on the email address, no name, didn't sign it, anything, just nothing. And every 6 months, I would try it again, try to figure out. I'd send them an email. I was pretty sure they were in Milwaukee. I don't remember why. I think I found like the same name of the email address on like an Ultimate Frisbee forum.
Yeah.
From like.
So you're just a sleuth on the side, like from the guitars. You just have to like sleuth people.
Well, no. Usually that's not how it goes. Usually people will say, I don't want to sell. Okay, that's fine. All right, conversation done.
Yeah.
All right, it's worth about this much. This is exactly what it is. That's very cool. Maybe if you do want to sell later, you'll call me.
Yeah.
Wow.
And but this guy just stopped, and I was like, well, did the email break or like?
Yeah.
What happened? I couldn't figure it out. And so eventually this summer, I just was like, no, I'm not taking no. No is not an option on that guitar. Or not just no, just like nothing. Silence is not an option. No is an option. That's fine. But silence is not an option. And there was some new bit of information about the email address that led me to the family and a couple of phone numbers. and I noticed that they were iPhones. And I was just sent out a text and was saying, hey, my name's John. This is my shop. I have a picture of this guitar from a couple years ago, and I think it's incredibly special and exceptional. It's a valuable guitar. If you guys ever want to sell, I'd like to be on your list of people to contact, because that's the stuff I like. You know, that's the cool stuff. And I didn't hear anything for 5 days. And then on the 6th day, I get this phone call from this guy saying, how do you have a picture of my guitar in my kitchen? You know, like, how did you get this? And I was like, well, someone reached out to me, you know, a couple of years ago and told me about it. And so I was talking to them about, you know, we think it's 1960 because of these things, but we'll need like the serial number and some other things to verify that. You know, we don't know what the deal is with this color, but it's very special. You know, that's very rare, very uncommon, if it's real, you know.
Right.
And you know, so I just want to know the story. I was like, where did you come across this guitar? I was like, clearly you lived in California at some point, because that's a lot of times what happens with special Fender stuff. Like, it just sort of floats around Southern California.
Yeah.
You know, there was a lot of special stuff in Southern California. And he said, no, I lived in Milwaukee all my life. My godfather gave me this guitar when I graduated high school in 1982.
Wow.
And I was like, whoa, you know.
Yeah.
Imagine in 1982 you open up, oh, cool, get a new guitar, and it's pastel purple.
Yeah.
And it's a Jazzmaster, too. The thing about the Jazzmaster is that it was incredibly unpopular in the 80s.
Yeah.
Like, they just stopped making it because nobody wanted it, you
Yeah.
know. Like, so it was the most undesirable guitar in 1982 that you could basically get that had Fender on it, you know. Like, it was pastel purple, and it was a Jazzmaster.
Yeah.
And multiple reasons for that, but basically the Jazzmaster was designed in 1958 when people used these very heavy gauge strings, and bending wasn't really a thing. You know, blues notes and bending, that wasn't the thing. The Jazzmaster wasn't designed for that. It was designed to comp jazz chords and be sort of darker sounding than the Stratotelli. And then in the 60s, everyone started using these thinner strings, and so they could bend and, you know, get that kind of blues rock sound. And Jazzmasters didn't work well for that because of the way the bridge was designed. It was designed like an archtop guitar with a lot of string length behind the bridge, and the angle that the strings went over the bridge yielded very little downward tension on those lower gauge strings, and so they would slip out of the bridge saddles, and they were just a nightmare. Nobody wanted them.
Yeah.
So you know, I number one was blown away that he didn't refinish it in the 80s, because it didn't matter, right? It was just a Jazzmaster, and it was pastel purple, and no one wanted that. Anyway, long story short, you know, I sort of talked some numbers with them. I was like, here's what we could do on this thing. Serious money, you know, not a joke. And they said, okay. You know,
Wow.
he debated it a couple while. You know, he was like, you know, I never played this guitar, haven't pulled it out since the 80s, except for that 1 or 2 times to like show somebody.
Yeah.
But it doesn't do me any good, and, you know, I think he could see the excitement I had for it. And, you know, and so he agreed to sell it to me. So, yeah, as far as we know, it is the only pastel purple Fender guitar made before the late 60s. And maybe the only one made in the Fullerton factory that anyone knows of. You know, there might be. I'm sure there's some others out there, and but as far as we know, no one has ever seen another one.
Yeah.
And we still don't even know what the color is.
Yeah.
Because the way it worked back then is that you know, you could get that standard color, sunburst, or you could get blonde. People had seen blonde because of the Telecaster. Or you could also order a DuPont Duco color. You may recognize those from the car world. They would do these charts. They manufactured paints for cars and that sort of thing. And then you had all these auto body shops that needed to know the exact formulation of each color so that when one came in wrecked, they could repaint it and match the paint. And so that's what we've got here on the camera there. We've got just this chart with colors and names. And this one says 1960 Chrysler and Imperial colors. And so, you know, when I saw the purple Jazzmaster, I went out and looked for the right charts for the color because that's what Fender would use. On the price list, it says DuPont, or it says Duco colors. They actually misspelled the name Duco. It's Duco from DuPont, but Fender spelled it D-U-C-C-O. I don't know why.
Huh.
So in the price list, you'll see it misspelled. But any Duco color you could have for a 5% upcharge. And so they didn't come out with official color chart until the summer of 1961. So after 1961, they have sort of a standard set of colors, and one-off colors are extremely rare after that.
Yeah.
Usually they're one of these colors: candy apple red, black, Olympic white. That sort of stuff. But before 1961, you just sort of have to go to these old books filled with these like DuPont colors,
Dude.
and try to match up the right color. So I ordered this book later. I didn't have this when I bought the guitar.
Yeah.
When I went to buy the guitar, I had ordered off of eBay the charts that I thought could be the right color.
Yeah.
And because of the way the clear coat had faded on that purple, I really thought it was this Dawn Mauve, this very pinkish purple.
Yeah.
And the reason I thought that is because that clear coat had turned yellow on top of the purple. And so it made it look kind of pinkish purple. But when I got to the guitar, I got to inspect, I'd ordered actually 2 color charts because I thought it could be Dawn Mauve, or maybe it's this lilac color.
Yeah.
And so when I got to the guitar, I finally got to remove the pick guard and look at the areas of the finish that haven't been exposed to light. And because that's when you get that true rendering of the color. And I could see it was neither of these purples.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was this very bluish looking purple.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of options in this book that I think might be it. The guitar is now owned by my friend in Denmark, and we're still working on exactly what purple. And I've sent him a couple, but it's in Denmark. I think it's actually one of these 2 here. Maybe this one, Wisteria. It's very bluish looking purple.
Yeah.
And that is a 1956 Lincoln DuPont color. Duco code 2201. I think that's most likely what it is.
Wow.
But we still don't really know because you
Wow.
got to have the chart in person to, when
Exactly.
you have a
Yeah.
picture
Yeah.
of it,
Right.
you can color temperatures and stuff change, and so
Yeah,
you don't
totally.
really know. So that's like a really special guitar for me to have been able to own for a time. That's just a dream come true,
Yeah.
money aside, just like having that in hand and getting to write that story, be a part of that vintage guitar like history. Like,
So cool.
look, pastel purple is an option because
Yeah.
we know this one is real. There's all these like little tells inside the body to like determine if the finish color is real. So that part takes a lot of study and takes a lot of documentation and photographing everything. So
Yeah.
like I mentioned earlier, I've got these 2 monitors here, which are sort of excessive. But one of the things I kind of envisioned with this space is that when people came in to sell guitars, I could look in my hard drive for pictures of the relevant places to prove authenticity. This is what it should look like. Here's 3 examples, and they all have this one feature, whether it's nail holes or dates or brands of parts or like all this stuff. And I haven't really used that screen for that, but
Yeah.
that's the stuff I love talking about. I love researching. I love learning about, and there's always more to learn,
So
like,
cool.
And there's people in this industry that have forgotten infinitely more than I know. George Gruen, you've probably heard that name.
Yeah.
It's just amazing, helped invent the industry. Norm Harris, there's a documentary on Netflix about his kind of journey in vintage guitars throughout the like 70s and 80s and stuff. So
Do you get involved in things like that as well? Like outside of the purchasing and the deals, do you get involved in some of the culture, the movies, the papers, the magazines? Like you said, you're in this book over here.
Yeah,
Some of
I
your
got privileged
photos.
to have a couple photos in there. I think I wouldn't. The pictures are not in there because of my great photography prowess.
Right.
They're in there because I had extremely rare guitars,
Yeah.
of which there are just very few pictures.
Yeah.
But I do have probably a lot of hours in photography because that's just part of selling vintage guitars online, because it doesn't matter where they are, it matters what they are. And so if you can show that customer exactly what it is with a very clear photograph, then they can feel confident they're going to get what they expect to buy.
Totally.
And so I've spent a lot of time on photography and tried to bootstrap that best I could, because I knew it would be a really big part of, doing this successfully, is being able to photograph a picture or photograph a guitar, very clearly, make it look cool, but also accurately describe it, all of that stuff. So, I did get a call. One of my favorite movies recently was the Bob Dylan movie, Timothy Chalamet.
Yeah.
He's not my favorite actor ever, but I was like, I can't imagine anybody else doing this better than he did.
Yeah.
And they did call me about the guitars that Bob Dylan used, very specific guitars, and they wanted to have either originals or reproductions. And they actually got in touch with Gibson, which I think was the right people to get in touch with. Some of my friends at Gibson. That made them like exact reproductions to the very, minute detail of the guitars that Bob Dylan played. So I thought that was fantastic, because
That's really cool.
I didn't have what they needed.
Yeah.
But it was nice to get the call.
Yeah.
So
Do you want to tell us about this? This is a Gibson SG.
Yeah.
Am I right?
So that is a 1971 Gibson SG Standard. Custom ordered kind of in two different ways. The most obvious one being the color is this turquoise. It looks more green, but it's actually blue. It's that clear coat on top that's turning amber and making it look green. But it's a very turquoise blue, custom one-off color. It also has factory stereo veritone circuitry, so you've got to use a stereo cable, like a TRS on one end and two mono outs
That's sick.
on the other end, and each side is a pickup. So you flip to the neck and it's left or right, and vice versa. So you flip to the middle position and you've got both pickups going through two different amplifiers.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
So you can run kind of like wet, dry effects and stuff,
Wow.
That was an invention or kind of a thing that Gibson was doing in 1959 with a model called the ES345. That never really caught on.
Yeah.
It's sort of a bear to use,
Right.
because you've got your like gain setting and your effects, and the order is weird when you have stereo, and you got to figure out how to plug it in, because they wanted you to just go straight into an amplifier, right? There wasn't any like. There was tremolo effect in 1959 by a company called DeArmond, but that was it. There wasn't foot pedals, really.
It's a balance between being experimental and also like ease of use.
Yeah.
And practicality of use.
So Gibson thought that was like, well, this is the extra upgrade,
Right.
And now it's today, like, there's the 335, 345, and 355. The 335 is 99% of the time mono output, and that's the one that Clapton used, and that's the one everyone wants, because the 345 is always stereo, except for maybe one or two examples. It's always stereo, and even though it's a fancier version of the 335, the exact same thing, because of that stereo circuitry, that people don't really want it. Anyway, sort of deep in the weeds there. The reason that guitar is special is that that finish, that color, is a very special custom color that we still don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Do have some friends at Gibson that have access to all the like documents and data, and according to them, there's just nothing from 71.
Wow.
So we're trying to like, how can we verify that this is real? We know it had been modified with Grover tuners, which are not original, but the rest of it, appeared to be as original as best we can.
Yeah.
As best we can see. And so I have been going through the books here to see if I can match up a color. But it's not as common for Gibson as it was Fender.
Yeah.
Fender, that was their thing, the DuPont colors and stuff. And so, we still don't really know what that color is, what the like true name of that color is.
Yeah.
Well,
When I was buying it, I thought it could be just a weird version of Pelham Blue. You've probably seen like the Dave Grohl like metallic blue, guitar. Pelham Blue, great Gibson color for SGs and stuff. And but it's a metallic color. It's a blue metallic color, and it looks amazing, and it turns green over time. But that guitar is not metallic in any way. That's a flat color. So it cannot be Pelham Blue. So we still don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Hopefully I'll get to write that story too, but I've sort of met like a dead end on it, because it's like, if Gibson doesn't have the data, then there's just nowhere to go.
Right.
I've yet to find. I think that guitar was made for someone special, someone that was actually playing and making money playing music, and Gibson wanted to make them something special. That happened a lot.
Yeah.
Because it just seemed weird for someone to just call. Although at the time you could just call and order whatever you wanted.
Right.
I wanted a hot pink, whatever. You could do that. It was very rare. So we just don't know the story of that guitar yet.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that someday, like that purple one, some new bit of information will kind of unlock that story. But right now we don't know, other than it's the only one we know of.
Yeah.
What guitar do you want the most right now?
Oh.
What guitar are you after the most right now?
So okay, those Les Paul Standards I always love, and I missed out on one in March that's just still devastating me. But I have had a couple of those, 258s, 60, but there's another set of guitars like 58 and 59 were just a huge transitional year for years for Gibson, where they were just innovating like crazy. And you may have heard of like the Flying V or the Explorer guitars. Gibson in the late 50s was known as being this kind of stodgy old archtop company that also made some electric guitars, big band. Gibson kind of dominated that big band era in the 40s with their archtops, and in the 20s and 30s with their like.
What is an archtop?
Oh, sorry. Like a deep body acoustic, like a carved top.
Oh, okay.
It's like a carved top acoustic guitar that projects a lot. People used it in big bands and then were electrified later.
Gotcha.
Which was problematic in the 50s because, like in the 30s and 40s, you had all these big bands in the dance halls. There'd be 20 people in this band because they didn't really have amplifiers. But in the 50s, amplifiers became easily affordable, for everybody. And so bands shrunk and became, 3 to 4 people, instead of 20. And of course, money-wise, if you want to be in the 4-person band that gets paid as much as a 20-person band.
Yeah.
And so it was just sort of like, this new company out of Fullerton, California called Fender was sort of dominating this like new solid body electric thing. And Gibson was old and stodgy, and they wanted to be cool and hip. And they had this president named Ted McCarty, and not really a guitarist, but just an innovator, and presided over Gibson at the most important years of the company, 1944 through 1966. He then later owned the Bigsby Company, if you've ever heard of like Bigsby. But he was known for just kind of innovating, and he made these designs, these radical designs. So like the Flying V in 1958 is literally like an arrow-shaped body. It's sort of like, we see Fender over there with these sort of traditional but solid body, guitars, and we want something that's gonna like make a big splash. And so he drew out these crazy designs that today we look at them and we think, well, that's an 80s guitar,
Right.
The Flying V or the Explorer.
Yeah, I was thinking of like hair bands.
Yes, they actually came out in 58.
Wow, I had no idea.
Yeah. And the Flying V, of which there are like 100 or so, I can't remember the exact number, and then the Explorer, of which there are like 22, something like that. So you can see I'm going to be waiting a while.
Yeah. Those are Grail.
Yeah, I mean, those can be $1 million.
Wow.
But I would love the privilege of having a family come to me and say, we have this weird guitar, what do you think it's worth? And to blow them away with a number they never dreamed of. Kind of like that burst in the in the trailer park where I definitely failed and didn't know what I was doing. I do now, and I'm ready.
Yeah, that's so
and
cool.
Stuff like that happens. There was a family that walked in a Flying V in a trash bag.
Wow.
To a guitar shop and said, what do you think this is?
Wow.
It happens.
Oh my gosh.
And Joe owns that guitar now, which is awesome because he
Wow.
probably gigs it and tours it,
That's so cool.
The trash bag Flying V. And there's another guitar that was like this prototype called the Futura that people didn't really think was real until this blues player in Texas named Ponte Gonzalez was driving around in his Cadillac with this stripped and parted out, weirdly shaped can opener guitar in the back window of his Cadillac. And turns out that's a real guitar. That was a real Gibson. That's now a known guitar called the Futura, and stuff like that. I did get privileged to have another one of those guitars that came out around that time. That's a double neck Gibson. Which you've probably seen. The like Stairway to Heaven like double neck. But before that was these. They were fully hollow but thin depth double neck Gibson guitars that were actually the shape of an SG, kind of like that blue one there.
Yeah.
But they have two necks, so they're big and wide, and the tops of them are carved spruce. They made like 17 in 1959, and one day I got a call from this guy saying, I have this guitar with 2 paddles on it.
2 paddles?
And I was like, 2 paddles? What? What is he talking? He's talking necks. He's saying 2 necks. And he's like, the first letter of the serial number is a G. And I'm like, G? That's a 9. And I was like, this is a double neck. This is a 59 double neck. When he said 2 paddles, first serial number is G. I'm like,
you were like wrong on both accounts.
I was like, I think I know what this is. I think this is a double neck. You mean 2 necks, right? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, that's exceptional. I got to get a picture of that. It was 6 a.m. Like, hey, let's go. I was in Clarksville, Tennessee after buying a Stratocaster, and he was in. I'm trying to remember which. He was in like Cleveland. Something like that, like downtown, like Cleveland, Ohio, somewhere like that. And I'm like, what is the story on this guitar? And he's like, well, my uncle passed away, and I inherited his house, and this guitar was in the house, but the case was really dirty and moldy, so I threw it out a couple days ago. I was like, bro.
Has the trash
You
come
remember when
yet?
I mentioned $10,000 case?
Yeah.
Double neck case, $10,000 minimum, because like, where are you going to get one of those? They only made like 17 and 59 and like 12 and 58 and 16 and 60. There's like incredibly few. I mean, the odds of being in the same room with one are just non-existent.
Wow.
So I told him, I was like, I think you've got a 59 EDS 1275 double neck guitar. That's a very valuable guitar. So we talked some numbers, and he was like, yeah, this sounds good. Let's do it. And I'm like, well, I'm 4 hours drive away, and you're in a state that doesn't have the bank that I bank with. So I've got to go get cash, because he didn't want cashier's check, or you wanted cash. And I was like, okay, I can do that. But like, I don't want to do this if you want to like pitch it to a bunch of other dealers while I'm driving there, which is fine if you want to do that. Let's put on the brakes, and And he was like, no, I'm ready to sell. I'll accept your offer. Okay, cool. So I get in the car, drive down to Nashville, withdraw the cash, spend 4 hours driving up to wherever he was in Ohio. 10 minutes out, he's like, well, I got another offer. I'm like, well, we did talk about that.
Yeah.
But, he's doing the best he can, and it was a very exciting guitar that the value was not clearly established. And so, but it, we were talking big money. So I was like, all right, hang tight. Be there in 10 minutes, and we'll talk it over and figure it out. So we did. Had a very awkward 2 hours, just because they thought, they were like, well, this could be $1 million.
Yeah.
It is not $1 million guitar.
Yeah.
It's a very exciting guitar. Not $1 million guitar. Not even close. And so we were kind of like talking these prices, and he had a guy there with him that was like, this could be $1 million. Do not take this.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, if it was $1 million, then I would have taken your second offer in an instant.
Yeah.
But I don't want to do that. I'm going to turn around and leave. So you've got to decide, do you want to sell today or wait? It's your call, and it's totally fine. Like, I understand we didn't sign anything. I'm frustrated, obviously. I've just spent 4 hours driving, and,
And now you have to drive 10 hours home or whatever.
Now I've got to drive all the way back to Birmingham, Alabama. But, whatever. I get it. I want you to get paid out for the value of your guitar. You deserve every dollar of the value of this guitar, and you're not obligated. But if it was $1 million, I would have taken that second offer instantly and been gone by now. But I'm not.
Yeah.
So, anyway, we did end up figuring it out, which was great.
Let's go
And
frick
I
that
had
other guy.
I had to pay it. What's that?
I said, let's go frick that other guy.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, I wanted, every time, I buy a guitar, I do want, in a perfect world, that every guitar would have an exact dollar amount that everyone
Yeah.
knows, and everyone would get that dollar
Yeah.
amount without any work or without any time or without any reputation.
But
Yeah.
where's the fun, man? Where's the fun?
well, I mean, it saved me a lot of time. But like, it does require work to sell vintage
Yeah.
guitars, and it does require reputation. It's built in decades and wasted away in a half second. In this world, everyone knows everyone, and everyone talks, and so
Yeah,
you've
have
got to
you-
be.
Have you seen? Because I feel like the thrifting world and everything, the competition is like incredibly high, and it has grown an insane amount because
Yeah.
just ever since I don't know. I just think ever since like presentation through social media has become so incredibly prevalent in the world, people just
Mhm.
know more about everything. Like,
Yeah, which is
I've
great. I support that, and I want.
yeah. What has been your like experience with the competition? Like, have you noticed that in the guitar world too, or was it just as
Oh, yeah.
competitive back in the day?
It's always been there, and I think competition is good.
Yeah.
Competition keeps a dealer like me. My goal is to be the seller's highest offer every time
Yeah.
for the guitars that I want, because I know that every time I buy a guitar, I might not ever get the chance to sell it. It might be
Yeah.
that I paid too much because I just was dying to have it, and I die with it. And
Yeah.
so every guitar that's here, if I have to die with it, I'll be all right. Because
Yeah.
I get to own and get to experience and get to play and enjoy. And so competition is good. Sure, it'd be great if I was the only vintage guitar person in the world, but
Have you noticed, like, I'm curious because you're working with, like you're saying, like these 57, 58, 59, like, the creme de la creme of these kinds of guitars. When you get that high up into six figures, do you like know all the other buyers in America?
Yeah.
Like, surely there's not
Yeah.
that many. I feel like it has to thin out at the top, right?
yeah, we all know each other.
What's y'all's relationships like? I guess
It's good.
It's probably cordial, I imagine.
Yeah, because we all have different ways of doing things, and so I find that we're not often like stepping on each other's toes, but sometimes we are. I mean, and yeah, it's I wish that weren't the case. That like I don't have to like, but also there are so many guitars. There are enough guitars for every nerd to be a part of this industry, and
I keep coming back to, like, as I'm thinking about it, like,
no one's gonna get all the guitars.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
unless you came in with truly unlimited money, and no one has unlimited money.
and that
Yeah.
buddy that was in high school
Jeff
or
Bezos
college-
doesn't like vintage guitars. I don't
Yeah,
think.
if he did.
But if he did, you can come on down to Drew Vintage Guitar
Right.
and get all of them.
But your buddy in high school or college that you just got to sell, or you got to find a $1,000 guitar for him. Like, that was that the substance is still there is what I'm trying to say. Like, it's still the same sort of thing, and I feel like that's probably the same for all of you guys who are, or girls who are, like, doing this whole guitar thing, like this high end collectible guitar thing. It's like you have to just geek out. Like, y'all have to just be geeks about this
Yeah.
kind of stuff. Like, you love it, and a part of you is like kind of loves that someone's just, this is coming off of the railing of the mobile home and into someone's home who's going to, like, absolutely love playing this.
Yeah.
And thus not drilled on the wall, hopefully.
I think on a related
Yeah.
note, there are some unwritten rules
Yeah.
in the friendships in the vintage guitar world that maybe haven't been spoken about. Maybe I'm about to write them, but just like they just seem to have come up over time. And that is sort of like, let's say I have a friend that comes to me with this guitar that they have the opportunity to buy that they're not totally sure on, and they need some help. The rule is you help that person for free, and they get to buy that guitar. You do not get to buy that out from under them, because when you need help, they're going to come and help you. Because everybody needs help. No one knows everything.
Oh yeah, so like someone, you're saying, like, if a buyer comes to you and they know of a guitar that you don't know about yet.
Right.
Oh yeah.
And
about that.
maybe they even say where it is or whatever. You cannot.
You can't like go search it up and
No.
yeah.
That makes
that
sense.
that written rule right there, or that unwritten rule right there in the
in the estate sale world in Birmingham does not exist.
Yeah.
People go behind people's backs like crazy.
Yeah.
Out
And,
Yeah.
and well, I mean, I think that rule is unwritten in the vintage guitar world, and so it does
Yeah.
happen.
Huh.
I have been on the I think that for any friends in the industry or any people that are looking to get into the vintage guitar world, if you come to me looking for help, I will help you. I expect you to help me too when I need it. Because even the people that know everything have forgotten a lot. Especially me. I make mistakes. I can think of one I made this year that was an honest mistake, but I shouldn't have made it. There was this part on this guitar that was replaced, and I don't remember what happened, but I had convinced myself that it wasn't replaced. And then when the buyer showed it to me and showed me the underside of it, I was like, oh, this is an obvious replacement. I just goofed, and so I went and bought them the real part, But anyway, everyone can make mistakes, and not everybody knows everything. And I think the unwritten rule is, if someone, I can think of a young person in this industry that didn't know that rule. And they should have, but now they know. And so if you come to me looking for help, I will help you, and I want you to help me too when I need it. Because that's just sort of how it works.
Yeah. Have you ever thought about going? I know you said you like amps and you have basses. I'm saying too. Have you ever thought about going in any of the? I mean, essentially any of the other things in the world. Like, have you ever thought about going into vintage pianos or vintage drums? Or I know that like Jacob's all about vintage cymbals.
Cool.
Like, I mean, there's worlds in the whole thing. Have you ever been interested in going any further in that, or is guitars like your sweet spot?
Yeah, I mean, I only buy what I love. Because if you venture outside of that, you do not know enough. If you love it, then you know everything inside and out, know enough, But if you don't love it, then you're just sort of grabbing and you make mistakes. The people that do love it know more than you. So if that cymbal is available at a really good price, at a cheap price, and you try to grab it, it might be because you don't know why it's cheap,
Absolutely.
And everybody else does.
Yeah.
And so like there was a time, I've got some tape echoes here, some echo plexes and Roland Space echoes, and I still love those. But I've got the collection of them that I want. There's maybe one more that I want, one or two, but I don't want to buy and sell those. They're very labor intensive, and shipping them is just a mess.
What are they?
Oh, sorry.
Just for people who don't know.
All right, so delay pedal.
Okay.
Right. It's that, but before there was an effect called delay, there was echo.
Yeah.
And so it's a tape machine that you plug your guitar into, and it writes the signal of your guitar onto that magnetic tape and then plays it back as the tape is going around. And that's how like those slapback delays and stuff, those are all tape echoes in the 60s and stuff.
Yeah.
So Echoplex is sort of the like first widely available, big one. There's some other like little ones, but they weren't like terribly widely available like the Echoplex. And then Roland comes along in the 70s and does the Space Echo like right behind you there.
Yeah.
And then those two underneath the cover, and then this Flex right here, that's an RE501 Chorus Echo. That's the coolest one. You can see it looks super 80s, that one like black and orange. And so before there was digital delay or even analog, bucket brigade delay, there was just tape that went around, and I remember kind of discovering those and just thinking, that's nuts, I can just get a digital delay, but I could sit there on the ground in my apartment on the carpet with a guitar in hand and a tape machine in front of me and an amplifier and make the craziest, alien sounds.
Yeah.
And so you'll hear it out there. But yeah, you can literally like kind of wiggle the tape and it just makes crazy
awesome
sounds.
That's
and
so cool.
Super long delays and super short slapback, and but they're not widely popular because they are just a nightmare to service, and they never work. If you want to tour a tape echo, you've got to hire your own like tech for the tape
only
echo.
Just for the
That's
tape.
crazy.
Yeah. So do I like digital stuff? Yeah, because sometimes I just want it to work.
Back to it.
So
Yeah.
like you're kind of doing the dream.
Thanks. Yeah, I am. I'm doing. Yeah,
like this
getting
was
to
like
do the
your
dream.
high school, like brainchild. You're getting to do it now that you're here. What is that like?
Yeah, it is wild. Like it is wild to look back on, and it is just mega ultra privileged. To have spent that time, to have been able to spend that time, and it all goes back to the sacrifice that my wife made for 6 years, saying like, it's okay if you don't bring home any money to our family.
Crazy.
Like, I think I look back on that, I'm like, there's no way that happened. Like. In the moment, I guess it always felt like, all right, so if like, the stuff hit the fan, we have money, like it's just in the business. So we would have
Just
to
gotta
liquidate
sell
the
everything.
business to fix a problem, which we could have done. We would have done. But yeah, that was like an amazing sacrifice that she made, and a belief, and a just the truest form of love. To like, just say, yeah, I got us. You go and like just do this. I think she probably also saw that my hyperfixation would let me do anything else. So that's the just amazing privilege that I still don't believe, and I don't know how I could ever like. Pay her back for that, but I have definitely tried the past couple of years.
Thank you, Liz.
So yeah, she
So
just.
when you think about like what's next, like what's like when you look out on the horizon now that you have gotten here to this point where you kind of reached this equilibrium, even though I guess there's still opportunity to pay Liz back. Like as you look out in the future, like what is there any dreams left, or is it just kind of like you love it, you found your pocket?
Yeah, I mean one dream is mental balance. Like that hyperfixation did drive a lot of this, and I want to be more balanced, and I also want to, if I can, reinvent the model so that it works better for everyone. Because it doesn't work perfectly for dealers, and it doesn't work perfectly for private sellers. It often works well, but it's not perfect.
How so?
It's like in a perfect world, every guitar has an exact price that everyone knows, and a $10,000 guitar that private seller gets $10,000 for, and then they go home and they didn't have to do any work, and they didn't have to put a bunch of time or risk their $10,000 in shipping and all that stuff. So that's a lot of the problems that I solve. I like to say that for private sellers of high-end guitars, I take the risk, the work, and the time out of selling a guitar at retail. So obviously I need to have markup in that, but sometimes I make more and sometimes I make less, and it's a risk. I've got a wall full of guitars priced at retail here. Some of them have been there for 2 years, and so I wish it worked differently, but I don't know how. I'm not sure what to benchmark that off of.
Yeah.
I'd like to reinvent the way it works, but I don't know how yet. But maybe that could happen, or maybe guitars become not popular anymore, and maybe nobody cares anymore, and it doesn't matter, and there is no more industry, and I'd be okay with that. If I had to die with all these guitars, I'd be happy to do that.
Yeah.
So
I mean, again, if guitars are anything like cars, I think that I don't think that's going to happen.
yeah, I mean, Stradivarius violins are still $4 million, right? And the violin isn't on pop music every day. You're not going to pick up a Strad for cheap.
Yeah.
So you tomorrow you wake up, you're like, I don't want to do this anymore. You sell out of all of it. There's a world where you can just sell out of all of these guitars.
Mm-hmm.
What do you want to do then?
Do I still need money in this dream world?
Yes.
Okay, I still need money.
I don't know, like what's your, I guess that's up to
Well,
you.
I know it's a world that doesn't exist because I won't do that tomorrow. I still love the guitars. I will say it is different because dream of exploration is, I don't get to explore the fifth bursts as much as the first one, or the fifth 54 Strat. But I did say that there's always more to learn and always new things. I mean, that Purple Jazzmaster happened a month ago.
Wow.
Whoa.
I didn't realize that was a month ago. That's insane.
Yeah, so there is always new things out there, but there are fewer new things. But I think that the less new they are, the better I can serve private sellers.
Yeah.
Those are my true customers. If a guitar is priced fairly, it will sell, like from my shop or from another established dealer. It will sell if it's priced fairly.
Yeah.
That's not a question, but if you don't have it, you can't sell it.
Yeah.
But I think if the more I know it and the tighter I know those numbers, the more I can pay and cut down my margins less because I know I'm going to get paid. The more risk there is, I can't pay as much because I don't know. There's only so much money. So that's nice. But okay, back to your question. So in the dream world, tomorrow I wake up, I'm like, nothing left to exploring guitars. I'm going to go do a different job or a different company or a different something. I've often thought about that because I do like, I think
Single
there's
origin espresso.
yeah. Well, I like espresso that is intended to be drunk by itself.
Espresso
not
only
in
shop,
milk.
Morris Avenue.
Yeah.
That would be fire.
Perfect.
I mean, I think my wife always hears me talk about the dream business that does not have to make money is a coffee shop that operates more like omakase sushi, where you have your
it's like plated to you and stuff.
You go in for like a 3-hour session. You have one chef who like makes it and hands it to you, and you eat every piece.
Have you been to the espresso places in Tokyo that do this?
Not in Tokyo, but I have been to the one in Nashville that I have been one time, and I got 2 coffees and a piece of bread, and it was $75.
Oh
Wait,
my
what was it?
gosh.
And it was the best experience.
Was it the vinyl place? What was the name of it?
Yeah, it's called Now and Then.
Now and Then, yeah.
I
went out of
loved it.
business this past year.
No, they moved.
They moved?
They moved, yeah. They
Really?
closed it in the hotel, and they moved to, just look it up, but I think it's just a husband and wife.
Wow.
That's just them. I don't think they have employees. And as someone that operates a business, I looked at that model and I was like, you have to be here every morning at 5.
Yeah.
You cannot go on vacation.
Yeah.
You cannot take a break. Anyway, it just sounds
Crazy.
and
This
that's
is
why it
beautiful,
doesn't
though.
exist elsewhere, is because there's like me and 2 other dudes that want to drink that. Number one, and it's impossible to train. You have to have that like obsessive brain.
Absolutely.
And the model doesn't work.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work in Birmingham. I wish it did.
Yeah.
One day,
Yeah.
dude.
But
One day.
Like I've already tried to jam a vintage guitar shop down Birmingham's throat, and I don't want to try to do that with a single a like high-end coffee shop. I do in my moments where I am overwhelmed.
I thought that was a legit bell.
I did too.
That's Liz.
Sorry, Liz.
In my moments where I am overwhelmed, in moments like when I got the call from those people in 2019 saying, don't call us again. We're working with this other shop. Thanks anyway. Bye. After I had just changed their life, their entire financial future.
Yeah.
No big deal. Which I'm happy they were served by a shop that could serve them far better than I could.
Yeah.
I was just really bummed it wasn't me.
Yeah.
I dreamed about that moment forever. I pulled over on the side of the interstate and just screamed in my car and just I was so devastated. And then I went and bought 3 bursts. But anyway, I mean, in my moments where I'm overwhelmed, where a deal didn't work out, or I did lose a guitar because I maybe had the number wrong or something like that, I think about 2 things. I do think about that high-end coffee shop like Now and Then, although I know it couldn't work the way that it would, it's like
that you
easy.
would want it to.
It's easy to think about a business that would be fun. It's hard to do 10 years of work where it doesn't work until it does.
Yeah.
That is hard. It's easy to think, wow, that looks super cool. All I have to do is like nerd out on this grinder all day and like make sure the extraction is perfect, and I can measure it on a what do you call it? Anyway, the total dissolved solids
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
that sounds awesome, but 10 years of doing that before you can take any money home is impossible. That is an extremely difficult. You have to love it so much. I don't know that I love that as much as I love like the vintage guitar thing. Yeah. So if I had to have a job or like if I had to start another business, one thing is that. Another thing is that I think the next business that I start, if I get that privilege, it would be I want to fall in love with a problem that someone has, that a lot of people have, that has not been solved in a unique way. I haven't found that problem yet.
Yep.
Like, I want to fall in love with that problem that the people have. And so you just think about it every day and you do your sort of like Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 hours in your head. How would I solve that problem? You know?
Yeah.
Sort of did some of that for vintage guitars, and you sort of are required to create something out of nothing. But I haven't like reinvented the industry there. I'd like to find a problem that people have that I love, like thinking of solutions to.
I resonate with that so hard.
Because those are the best businesses,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
They serve people in a unique way that people haven't thought about, or was too difficult to do, or something like that. Part of that for this company was cash. You know, I didn't want to do consignment because I wanted to own. I wanted to own. You know, because I have 3 collections of guitars. One collection that will go to the grave with me. It's very small because you just have to sink your money in and you never get it back.
Yeah.
And then I have one collection that's my guitars for now, but is not currently for sale. And I have one collection of guitars that are currently for sale.
Yeah.
So
Is this all for sale?
most. Like this white Jag here with no serial number, we sort of chatted about that story. That one's not for sale. Just love it. It's fun. There's a story there that we don't know.
Yeah.
And then I have the prototype to a Fender model called the Starcaster.
Oh, sick,
Whoa.
dude.
So
That's
this
so
is sort of a fun story that I still do not believe happened. A couple years ago, I was doing YouTube videos, and I had a Starcaster, and I was just doing research online, and I came across the website for the guy that helped design it. He wasn't like the primary designer, but he was one of the guys that was pretty instrumental. His name was Gene Fields. And he owned a pedal steel company after he left Fender called Gene Field Industries. So I ended up on their website. I was looking around. I was like, wow, this is a very like sort of 80s, 90s like pedal steel company, highly regarded, you know, very great pedal steels. And I ended up on the About section, and I found this old picture of a Starcaster in his kitchen from like pictures from like the 80s or something. Like it is color, but it's an old picture. And it's a Starcaster leaning up in the wall in his kitchen, sort of like the Jazzmaster picture, you know, just like leaning up in the wall in the kitchen. But I look at it and I'm like, wow, that sunburst is a really interesting color. And wait a second, there's only 4 knobs on that Starcaster. One of the things about the Starcaster is that it has a master volume, so it has volume and tone for each pickup, and then a master volume knob. And this one only had 4; it didn't have that master volume. And I was like, whoa, this is like something really special. And I read about it, and it said that this was Gene Field's own personal Starcaster that he got after he helped with the development of the model.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa, I have got to find this guitar, you know, I've got to find that, you know. I don't know if that's the very first one, but it is one of the earliest, and it is very special. And I was like, if I don't get to buy it, that's okay. But if I can photograph it and document it and like learn about it, that would be incredible. And so I made this whole YouTube video about it in 2021. And 11 months later, I didn't yet have the shop, so I come downstairs. You know, I think it was Saturday morning, and I do the same thing I did every Saturday morning. You know, I'm making coffee on my La Marzocco Linea Mini, which is sort of a flex.
Let's go.
That's
a
a
huge
flex,
But like that was what I bought when I could
2
finally.
hours into this podcast.
Yeah, that was like what I bought when I finally like was able to take home some money. I was like, I always wanted a real espresso machine. So anyway, I got one.
Dude, come on, dude. The Breville's awesome.
Yeah, Breville would have been killer, but
Little different.
something about the hyperfixation I think
Yes,
got
you're
to me.
making a spro Saturday morning.
I'm making coffee. I'm looking at Reverb. You know, Reverb is where
Wonderful morning.
a bunch of musical gear is found, and I see this Starcaster. It's got 4 knobs. I'm like, what is happening? That's exactly like the Gene Field one. I've got to buy that. And so I just hit buy. And then and I start looking at it. I'm like, wow, these are like in the same batch. You know, they're so clearly very close. But the sunburst was sort of faded on the front of the one I bought, and it was sort of deep red on the picture from Gene Fields. But I keep looking at it. I'm like, wow, the wood grain is identical. That was like the same wood grain. And wait a second, the nuts on the tuning machine posts are in the exact same position. Like,
Right.
and I'm like, this is the same guitar.
No way.
This is exactly the same guitar. And I got it in, and I matched it up to those pictures exactly. Exact same grain. Just the sunbursts have faded in like the 20 or 30 years between the picture and the one that I bought.
Wow.
So I contacted the guy. I was like, what the heck, dude? Where did you get this? And he was like, yeah, I answered a Craigslist ad for a Fender Mustang in Detroit. And I bought the Mustang and said, do you have anything else? And he said, oh, I have this Starcaster. And he pulls out that Starcaster.
What?
Yeah. And sold it to him. And he was like, I don't know why it doesn't look like the other ones. I don't know why. I think he paid $500 or something.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
I paid a lot more, but I was happy to. I would have paid anything. And I was like, okay, that's weird, right? Like,
Yeah.
And so I posted about it on Instagram. And one of the good things about social media is all the nerds get together around like common interests. And one guy was like, I used to work at Guitar Center in the 90s, and we had that guitar hanging up over the door with a plaque that said it was the prototype.
Wow.
It was a Guitar
Whoa.
Center in Dallas, which matched up with the story that Gene Fields' son-in-law, he passed in like 2012 or something. Gene Fields' son-in-law, who owns the company now, told me he sold it to the Guitar Center in Texas somewhere.
Oh my gosh.
And I
Wow.
was
That
like,
is so cool.
that Guitar Center closed.
Wow.
And so I told the guy I bought it from, I was like, dude, this is stolen. Like,
Yeah.
that somebody knew this was the prototype, and then now they don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, like, so I contacted my friend at the Guitar Center immediately, as soon as I suspected, and said, hey, I bought this. I'm obsessed with it. I'm pretty sure it's stolen from you guys. So let's go ahead and do what we need to do to resolve that.
Yeah.
And he's like, all right, cool. I'm going to go look up the serial number. And he was like, we don't have record of that guitar at all.
Wow.
And he's like, I went and asked management. They don't know anything about it. As far as we know, you're clean.
Wow.
Wow.
So I was like, okay, well, I've got these text messages, this email with pictures and stuff to say I did my absolute best.
Yeah.
But there is something sketchy that happened in between, like, the Guitar Center and Detroit. And
Yeah.
I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Dude, I literally was just talking to my buddy today who buys shipments of Nordstrom racks, and I was like, so why does Nordstrom sell like their overstock? Like why? Like, and he was like, no one knows. No one knows what happens to clothes whenever it goes out the back door of like big box stores. But there's just like this underground,
Really?
like shady market. And I'm like, but it's funny you say that because like a Guitar Center closing down in Dallas has to be like a similar situation. You know,
I don't
it's
know.
just
It all
Yeah.
goes somewhere.
It
Yeah.
all they
Yeah.
probably were just like getting rid of crap.
Yeah.
And they were just like, well, can I buy that? And some guy who didn't know was
Blowout
like, yeah.
sale. I'll take the one over the door.
I don't know. I did my absolute best. I never want to have, something with that history, but, I did my absolute best to track down and figure out what happened here is exactly the same guitar as the picture from the kitchen.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I mean the every grain line, every nut, every
That's
and it's
so
a
cool.
fascinating
prototype.
guitars.
Like how many prototypes
Yeah.
are there? You know, It's
And
like
we
not
know
many.
for sure because like every Starcaster is laminated maple. Like it's got a couple layers of laminate maple. It's plywood, This one's not. It is carved maple,
Wow.
top and back, which must have been extremely difficult to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And recently I got some information about it because the sunburst also didn't really match like what I expect, like the other ones. It doesn't really match. And I bought this guitar called a Montego, Fender Montego, which was an archtop guitar that Fender made in the early 70s. And it was made in this like R&D department at Gene Fields and Roger Rossmeisel and like a bunch of like Phil Kubicki, like all those R&D guys worked in this one place. The sunbursts were identical. And that's where they were making those Montegos and the LTDs, which were carved maple tops. So I was like, okay, this makes sense. This was made in this weird R&D place where Gene Fields was working.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like Phil Kubicki, one of the Fender R&D guys, says, I got a parking spot right next to Gene Fields at this place. So I was like, okay, well, now this makes sense, because how is the factory making like carved maple? This doesn't make any sense, you know?
Yeah.
So it's got carved maple top and back. It doesn't have mounting rings for the pickups. It has fake rings. Like, it's just a piece of plastic cut out, it puts around, but the pickup actually mounts to foam just like a Jazzmaster pickup, which none of the other Starcasters do or have.
Yeah.
And then also on the back of the guitar, it has 12 string ferrules, like a 12-string. But it's a 6-string guitar, and it never had a 12-string neck. And as I sort of inspected it, I think that the reason is because the bridge that's on there is the standard style that the Starcasters have, which is a pedal steel style bridge.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, Gene Fields. I don't think that was the original bridge plan for the guitar, because the neck pocket angle is cut incorrectly. It's too shallow. It's meant for the neck to be way lower, closer to the body. I think because they originally planned it for a different bridge.
Wow.
We don't know what that bridge was.
So you still have that guitar?
Yeah, I've got it in the back. I'll show it to you.
Wow.
That's sick.
Because I was just like, yeah, that's like I don't know if that's a grave guitar, because I don't want to like ask my family to sacrifice for these like very expensive guitars forever. But you know, I'm not planning on selling that unless I get in some major trouble. So if you see it for sale, you'll know something went wrong.
Just gone down.
Dude.
This has been genuinely like probably my favorite episode.
I was gonna say, I feel like we could go for literally another 2 hours.
Sorry,
like
I
have so many more questions.
Start going and
maybe we could start like a little mini series.
check in every once in a while with new stories.
We could just talk about one guitar for an hour.
We're gonna start a new podcast that's just interviewing John over and over again about guitars.
That sounds good.
Dude, as we wrap, like, I think the question on all of our minds: what's the like craziest customer? The most like wild, unless also if you don't want to talk about it, it's totally cool. But what's your like craziest like?
You know, 99% are the kindest, easiest to work with. People that treat me with respect I didn't think I deserved. You know, like, like even early days before I had, you know, sort of made a name in the vintage guitar world as being a person that buys bursts and stuff. Like, it's always they're all so cool, and there isn't that person that just buys and sells guitars like stock and doesn't play them. There isn't that.
That's so sick.
Everybody
honestly.
plays. That's the first question. So cool. How's it play? How's it sound? Like every buy.
Yeah.
So like
that's so cool.
I think
awesome.
that image is out there. Like you know, these guitar collectors, they don't even play. You know, like yeah, they do.
There's a guy in Birmingham who does drums, who is what you're talking about.
Okay.
You might know him.
Who does play or doesn't
play?
Who
doesn't.
Oh, okay.
But what's so funny?
I've never met these people.
So my dad in the 60s had some. Do you know anything about drums and vintage drums and
Not
stuff?
that much.
My dad in the 60s had some Ludwig, like maple Ludwig mod oranges.
Cool.
And like psychedelic red and mod orange were the colors for these like Ludwig standards, and or Ludwig keystones, and this guy who has like a huge drum collection used to have a drum store here like in the 80s, and then now he just has a collection. My dad was like 14, and he was like, I like want to buy your drums from you. Like, would you be interested in trading? And my dad was like, yeah, for sure. Because like my dad loved the drums, but he's like a kid. He doesn't really know that they're like that special. And he traded my dad, at the time this guy was like 30 or 40. He traded my dad these CB700s, which are like pretty crap drums. It's like wait, it's escaping me. What is the like Fender but like $200
Squire?
Yeah, Squire. It's like the Squire of drums, but it was like an 8-piece, so it was like 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18. It was like all these toms, and my dad was like, oh my god, I'm Phil Collins, let's go. I'm trading. I'll trade for sure. And so he screwed over this like kid, and those mod oranges are worth like probably like $14,000 now. And it just like that like story through my entire life I've known. So it's honestly so cool to hear that like in Guitar World it's just kind of like, no, you buy it and you play it. Like you don't just like
Yeah, I mean,
flip for the shigs.
There's 30 guitars in here minimum. There's 30 spaces for guitars on that wall, and then there's 10 around us. And so it is not true that I play every guitar every day.
Right.
That is not true.
Fair.
I'm not saying that. I do play guitar every day because that's just the fun part.
Yeah. And you love it.
I play those same 5 riffs with deep passion. You know?
Who's your most A-list buyer? And that one is the one you don't have to answer if you don't want to.
Every customer is the A-list. You know, I mean, I loved selling guitars to like Jeff Tweedy. Like,
Yeah.
that was killer.
That's so sick.
And when Nels Climb came here, you know, just to hang out and check it out for a second, that was incredible. Yeah, I don't know. I sold some guitars to Zach Brown.
Sick.
That was fun.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
His drummer is my instructor at Stanford.
All right.
His name's Chris.
No way. Okay.
They're awesome.
Yeah.
They're some good musicians.
Great guys. Yeah.
Chris Brown is his drummer.
Chris Fryer. Chris Brown. Yeah, that's his drummer.
Yeah.
But no, that's sick, man. That's really cool.
Yeah. You know, there's, I don't know. It's like, sometimes it can be like that with like a celebrity client, but a lot of times they have their like guy,
Their guitar tech or something.
yeah,
Right.
which always leaves me a little unsatisfied. It's like I want to talk to the person who's buying to
Right,
make
the
sure
one who's going to actually play
we're
this.
on the same page of what we're doing. I don't want to play phone tag on the details because the details are important,
Yeah.
and oftentimes those are 6-figure guitars. You
Yeah.
know, like the Purple Jazzmaster. One of the person that called to buy that guitar was the buyer for Chris Stapleton.
Well,
You know, and he loves Jazzmasters, so it wasn't surprising that he wanted that purple one.
That's
He didn't end up wanting to buy it, which is fine. But I was kind of like, well, I don't know, like maybe, you know, I'm sure people don't want to give out their phone number or whatever, and that's fine. You know, but yeah, sometimes it'll be funny. Like I'll sell something on Reverb and don't really know. They just check out, you know, like, and it'll be like guitarist for, gosh, it's like I'm just blanking on, you know, this was a couple of years ago. Guitarist for like Southern rock band from Kings of Leon.
Nickelback.
Kings of Leon.
Yeah, also Nickelback, but
Nickelback.
yeah, like guitars for Kings of Leon. That was super
That's
fun.
sick.
'Cause I like
But
love
just
listening.
reverb.
Yeah,
That's so funny.
yeah, it just checks out.
That's so funny.
Or like bass player in
Ron
Maroon
at
5.
Kings of Leon.
It would just be like their name. It would just be like their name and
Yeah.
address in the Hollywood Hills. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh wait, I should probably look up that name.
Right.
You know,
Right.
That's funny.
you know, and that's
Wow.
cool. You know, but oftentimes it's just people that love guitars and have always dreamed to own. I write this on my website for people looking to sell guitar or thinking about selling. You know, we inherited this guitar, we're set, we don't need money, you know, but this is a $75,000 guitar and it just sits here. And why should I sell that to John, who's going to mark it up and make some money? Like, why? Maybe not. Maybe you don't need to. Maybe you just need to keep it, and that's your inheritance from your grandparent, and that's incredible, and that's great.
Yeah.
Or you could turn that guitar into some money that you can go make memories with your family with that aren't going to sit in the closet. They're going to be with you forever. You can go on a dream vacation that's paid for by your parents' inheritance. And then that guitar is going to go back into circulation and get played and enjoyed and talked about. And every little detail. Look at the grain line. Look at it doesn't have a master volume. You know, like all the like kind of goofy stuff.
Yeah.
So that's why you can spread joy to people in the guitar community and make like fulfill their dream, my dream, their dream of we never believed that a pastel Jazzmaster existed, and here it is.
And that right there is why, if you have a vintage guitar, you should call none other than today's guest, John Schultz.
Yeah, I do offer free appraisals, no obligation. So, yeah, would love to check out your guitar.
John, seriously,
Thank
this
you.
was a
Thank you,
delight.
man.
Thanks.
Truly a delight. Thank you
was
so
a
much for
blast.
being on. This is awesome.
Enjoyed it.
And then just quick plugs. Is like just Instagram,
Yeah,
your website.
it's at True Vintage Guitar on Instagram, truevintageguitar.com. Yeah.
Awesome.
Love to check out your stuff. My name is John Schultz.
Love it. Thanks, guys.
Thank you,
Cheers.
John.